morning, evening, and everybody. How are we doing today? Abortion, which is far too prevalent in public debate and is far too normalized and supported, even among Catholics, whose entire church has said that this practice is evil since antiquity. They support it by about 15 points. But abortion, according to Ireland's Health Service executive, 108 Irish babies who have been the victims of failed abortions in the past 5 years have been born alive and subsequently died. So that's 108 born victims of abortion. So yeah, this is a figure released by Ireland's Health Service executive and show that 29 babies were born alive after a failed abortion and subsequently died in 2023, 23 in 2022, 14 in 2021, 25 in 2020, and 17 in 2019. This is an evil practice. This shouldn't shock anybody, or it shouldn't seem to anybody as being a uniquely evil outcome of abortion, because abortion is inherently evil. It always takes a human life. But this just shows that babies, even outside of the womb, can still be victims of abortion. These babies didn't choose to be born into this world just to die. They didn't choose for you to have sex without being in the bond of a marriage and deciding to kill it. They didn't decide that. So why are we punishing the baby for something that it cannot control or that it did not partake in? This is a very sad news story, obviously. 108 Irish... This is just Ireland. Ireland is a pretty small country. 108 Irish babies have died. Born babies have died because of the injuries that they sustained, or presumably the injuries, I don't know the exact cause, that they sustained during a failed abortion. 4 of these babies were more than 24 weeks gestation and or weighed more than 500 grams. In addition, so all the ones that were born that were past 24 weeks gestation, in addition to that characteristic, they had no major disability. These babies were viable. Obviously, 24 weeks gestation is past viability. These babies these are late-term abortions, and they had no major physical disability. If we look at the United States and take that as an example, if we go back to the US, where the kind of focal point of the abortion debate is, 1% of late-term abortions, which anytime you bring up late-term abortions, the leftists are always like, oh, it's always because of the life of the mother, or it's always because of fetal anomalies. But anyways, if we look at that, there's 1% of abortions are late-term. But if we look at data from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, it's only 0.3% of abortions in the United States of America are because of the life of the mother. Now, unless you're willing to say that 0.7% of abortions are therefore because of fetal anomalies, which I don't think they are, or at least if fetal anomaly is good enough that would make this child die, like, I don't know, cyclopsis or something, which I don't think 0.7% of pregnancies are cyclopsis, the entire argument falls apart completely. The entire narrative of abortion in late term is only done for medically necessary reasons for either the fetus or the mother. No, it's not. Never was. And then also the argument that safe and legal abortions, in the same article, that safe and legal abortions will lower the abortion rate, which is obviously not true. The only reason the 2000 era abortion rate drop happened was because of the emergence and the mass production of contraceptives and the mass usage of contraceptions, because people barely used contraceptions before 1970. In the coming decades, they did a lot. Okay, let's look at the stats. So this according to Ireland's Department of Health. So about 10,852 abortions happened in Ireland in 2024. That's 10,000 babies dead. But that's a 63% increase from 2019 when the abortion on demand legislation came to Ireland. Okay, if you look at that, that's gut-wrenching. 10,852 innocent babies murdered in a single year. And if you're living in Ireland, your fellow countrymen, if you're in the rest of the world, your fellow human being, 10,000 of them slaughtered because of someone's stupid decision to do some pretty foul stuff before marriage. But then people also like to argue that consent to sex isn't consent to pregnancy, and that's obviously not true. They like to state, by using a car analogy, that if you're driving a car, do you consent to a car crash? Well, I like to say it like this. Consent to sex is consent to pregnancy, because pregnancy is a primary risk of consent, while a car crash is a secondary risk to driving a car. And what's the difference? Why does it matter? Okay, well, let's look at pregnancy. It necessarily, the purpose of having sex is for a baby, biologically. Now, the pleasure aspect of it comes out of that biological drive to get people to procreate, but the very action of sex is for and biologically for, regardless of what humans are twisted into, for procreation. So therefore, when you're engaging in an act that's made for a thing that you don't want, but you are using it in a way so that you will kind of exploit the good aspect of it that you want, then you are necessarily consenting to that action which it necessarily produces. But with a car crash, I'd say that's not really analogous to sex and pregnancy, because that's a secondary risk. If we look at that, a primary risk would be your gas going down. You could be going in a car to drive to your friend's house, not for the gas to go down, but necessarily by driving a car, the gas is going to go down. But by simply, if you're swerving around in a car and being very dangerous on the road, then I'd say you are consenting to a car crash. I'd say that is you're doing it for the thrill. Very similar to pregnancy, you're doing it for the thrill, or sex. You're doing it for the thrill, but necessarily and most likely, it's going to pose a bigger risk to yourself and others. And then you can say, okay, well, what if they're using contraception? Let's say you went to a casino and there was then there was a slot machine that had a 99% chance of you winning and a 1% chance of you not winning. The primary risk in that would be you losing, obviously, because you took the risk, because that's 99% is about the accuracy of all contraception. They're not accuracy, but effectiveness. However, a secondary risk would be the machine fucking exploding. I don't think by taking that machine, which necessarily either makes you win or lose, I don't think you're consenting to it fucking exploding. However, you are consenting to losing, and you can't say my wallet's my choice when you inevitably lose, or if you do lose. And obviously, medically assisted dying is a horrible problem in Canada, but we are set to reach 100,000 deaths by this summer from MAID. It's euthanasia. The government is one huge satanic murderous industry, and their tools are abortion and euthanasia via medically assisted dying. Both of these are euthanasia, to be fair. One just happens when you're a baby, and one happens when you are depressed and have seasonal depression. So this Canadian man, who was hospitalized due to repeated alcohol-related falls, had his life ended by assisted dying the day after having virtual eligibility assessments despite no clinical investigations and no terminal diagnosis. Euthanasia. This is euthanasia. The government has immigrated so many people here that they cannot stand it anymore, and they cannot provide for the native population of Canada anymore. The people who were born here, the people who came here before the Trudeau wave. They can't provide for them healthcare anymore, so they're killing them. The healthcare system is so overwhelmed. We have such a doctor shortage because it takes 15 years of setup, starting from when you're in like fucking grade 8 to become a doctor, that they're killing them. They just give up and fucking kill you. 100,000 people. That's more than our World War I and World War II death counts combined. The fetus is part of the human species, and it is a person with huge potential. Not a potential person, it's not a potential human. It's biologically a human because it is a part of the species Homo sapien. It is our offspring. That's where the word fetus comes from, if you trace it back to the original Latin. A human being is not a person. You'd have to, A, dehumanize them, or B, state that they are dead, which obviously a fetus is not dead. You can't compare it to brain death either, because brain death is the permanent ceasing of future and present experience, conscious experience. However, a fetus does have future experience. It has future conscious experience. It may not have present conscious experience until a few weeks, but 100% will in a few weeks, and therefore you cannot murder it. If someone fell into a car crash and they forgot everything they ever experienced, everything they've ever thought, everything they've ever believed. So they cease in any meaningful sense to have any past subjective experience, conscious experience, obviously. They don't have any present experience because they're currently in a medical coma, but they will have future conscious experience. You don't have the right to murder that person. You can't unplug them. You can only unplug them if they're in brain death or there's no chance of them ever having future conscious experience. This abortion is not akin, or a fetus is not akin to a brain death patient. A fetus is akin to a patient in a medically assisted coma. And you can't murder either of them because they're both human beings. And why is murder wrong? Okay, let's think about that. Murder is wrong not because it takes away like a part of something. It takes away what is. It takes away what is a person. It takes away that person himself. It takes away their right to a future. It's not wrong because it takes away someone else's right to your experience. It's not wrong because the future connections you have, well, it might be wrong in some sense, but it's not wrong because let's say there's a 25-year-old man. Killing that man is not only wrong because he can't go home to his friends and run Call of Duty anymore. Killing that man is wrong because it imposes the misfortune of premature death. And he had a right to a future where, because if he'd gone on by himself, he wouldn't have faced that premature death. He would not have had the ceasing of all future consciousness. However, you wrongfully imposed that misfortune upon him, and therefore that is absolutely wrong. In the case of abortion, you are taking away what would have been that child's experiences, and you are taking away what would have been that child's consciousness. If you kill a 7-year-old, you're taking away what would have been that child's experiences. You're taking away that child's future consciousness, and that is the worst thing you can do to someone. The right to a future overrides your right to bodily autonomy. The right to life overrides your right to bodily autonomy, and we always believe that. And the reason why we believe that is because a conjoined twin can't slime out their conjoined twin because they feel like that they just don't have privacy. They can't do that. Christians cannot defend the pro-choice argument at all. These 180 babies deserve to live. The 10,000 babies in Ireland deserve to live. 1 million babies a year in America deserve to live. But Christians cannot defend this. It is a taking of human beings made in the image of God. It's a Christological heresy, actually, because if you were to suppose that someone's not a person until they've either exited the birth canal or a certain week's gestation, then you were to then say that then Christ was not fully person and fully God, or just fully person, a fully human being, at some point in his existence, which is obviously not true. If you're a Christian, then you must hold to the belief that Jesus Christ, every single second of existence, was 100% human and 100% man necessarily by his own nature. You can't, it's a Christological heresy to say otherwise, that he was just this guy who wasn't a person, just God, until certain weeks gestation arbitrarily. No, not at all. You can't say that. All right, everybody, very sad topics today. I hope you all have a blessed and amazing day, and I hope that we can one day beat the evils of abortion and medically assistance in dying, because these are both euthanasia programs that resemble the Nazis. The way they're structured, I mean, it's disgusting. Anyways, have an amazing day, everybody. Good night, or good morning, good evening. Okay.